everyone. It's Colin with the National Democratic Training Committee. I'm so excited because this vlog series features expert trainers from all across the country. And today I am joined by Ashley Arnold. Ashley, can you give us a little bit of information about yourself before we dig into some questions?
Thanks so much, Colin. Like you said, my name is Ashley Arnold. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Deputy National Training Director on the coordinated campaign. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you.
Well, I am excited to learn more about you and your training expertise background. With that said, how did you get involved with training and democratic politics?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a roundabout journey. I started and I was in graduate school. I was actually studying education policy, so I thought I was going to be on the policy side. But I had a summer internship as an organizing fellow at the ACLU in Philadelphia. And I just fell in love with organizing and people power and creating change, and had been a strong Democrat for most of my life. So I kind of just went with that. And after graduate school, I got a job at the Obama Foundation, where I helped sort of to build from an instructional standpoint, the CLC, which is a program for 18 to 25-year-olds who want to be community organizers. And then 2016 happened, and I was very much gosh, it feels so irresponsible of me to be doing nonpartisan work. So I left and I joined Warren campaign, and now working on the coordinated, and I'm just really excited. I feel like it came together in a way that I'm really lucky. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing about that journey to get to where you are today. And with that, what does your current work with the Biden-Harris Victory 2020 coordinated campaign look like with regard to training?
So my role on the team, I do a little bit of everything, but I would say mostly I help do some of our DEI work. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have been doing that work for volunteers. We've been doing it for staff. So we're sort of trying to hit all the buckets there. And I have previous experience with DEI work. So I'm really excited. I think, we believe we're one of the first big campaigns to do this. And we've had, help from our BPI, the training team at the DNC to do some work in Google Classroom. And we've had live facilitated trainings that I've been able to do myself. And then I've been doing some things with the states as well. So that's kind of the big bucket of my work, but also supporting in, creating trainings, canvassing trainings, phone banking trainings, all the normal stuff that we'll, do on a campaign. So it's a little bit of everything.
Sounds like a whole lot of training happening. With that and developing so many different trainings, how do you approach training, or what is your personal training philosophy?
So I was lucky enough at the foundation to just have access to so many people who are ridiculously smart, much smarter than me. And got really into design thinking and thought a lot about how we can meld design thinking, specifically equity informed design thinking, sometimes called liberatory design, and community organizing, and also just very much the training principles that we know to be true, sort of instructional design principles. So that's sort of always melding those three things. I think for me, that means thinking about how I can make all training accessible. And, asking myself some of those questions that come from design thinking, specifically liberatory design of hey, if I continue on the current, path, or if I continue with the current training plan, who can't interact meaningfully, or who did I create this training for, and things like that. So I think that's those are kind of the questions that are always guiding me, and always thinking about the learner and how to build with them to, as much as I can.
How would you define or describe design thinking for folks who might be new to it?
That's such a great question. So design thinking is a framework of steps. And essentially, I won't go through all the steps, but it essentially pushes people to design products or, outcomes with the actual community that they are serving. So instead of saying, hey, I work in the mayor's office and we really need to fix how expensive, school lunches are, you would say, okay, I'm going to hire a team of designers and they are going to embed themselves in this school, for 2 years. And they're going to talk to the students and they're going to talk to the people who work in the lunchroom, the teachers, the policy experts, and they're going to try to decide and, think of a solution with all of those people in mind that makes the most people happy. So it's really designing with a community and not for a community. and not just prescribing a solution that's based on academia, but also like very much based on the folks who are going to be the most impacted by that decision.
Thank you for sharing that a little more detail. The National Democratic Training Committee trains candidates, staff, and local leaders all across the country for free, and we have a trainer community that helps us train so many folks. What impact do you think NDTC's work has with regard to training and democratic politics?
I mean, I think it's a huge impact. We were thinking through some of these things, and I've been thinking through them myself, just going back to the design thinking questions and, who can't participate if we continue on the current pathway. So many of our trainings are sort of inaccessible to people, and making things free, putting them online, that is really getting to that accessibility question. So I think it's super important that we continue to think about that, about equity, about who we can make sure is involved and has access to information, and we can democratize that as quickly as possible. And I think the work that you all are doing is really, really pushing towards that.
We learned about your journey and all of the trainings that you have been part of, along with some of your professional background and your training philosophy. With all of that, what is the most important thing that you have discovered or learned while developing trainings?
That is such a good question. I think, and this sounds really rudimentary, it is actually that people just don't learn the same way that I learn. So I think like I'm very much a product of our education system, and that if somebody just like talks at me and makes me take notes, I will retain everything they're saying. And unfortunately, it took me a bit to be like, hey, this is not the way that everybody learns. It took me like actual instructional design classes to be like, oh, okay, like we need to cater to many learning styles, many different kinds of people. So I think like that is the number one thing that I've been able to learn, is just like creating spaces for people that are not exclusive, but more so inclusive, and can cater to everybody, regardless of learning style or background or things like that, and just being really cognizant of that.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to folks who are learning to increase their training or facilitation skills?
I would say be open to changing. Don't think that the best way. Definitely don't, be the person who's like, I've always done it this way, or like, this is the way one person taught me how to do it, so like, this is the way I should do it. Just being open to learning from the people that you're training. I've had the privilege to train people who are 18 to 25, and then volunteers who are typically much older than that, and everybody in between. So I think constantly like learning from those populations of people and saying, hey, these are two distinct populations, and they need different kinds of tools and different kinds of language to learn what they need to learn, and to sort of like be in this journey with me of learning. So I just like would push people to be open to giving, taking feedback, and to also sort of incorporating some of those design thinking ideas. If you have the privilege of like having time with people before you have to just, create a training in a week, I would say take that time and sort of have a preliminary, like almost like, what do you want to get from this? What do you want to learn? Sort of that conversation, so you can make sure that things are most accessible to people, because we don't always know, and we sometimes think that we know.
That is a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing it. And thank you for sharing more about your background, your approach to training, as well as the things that you have discovered, learned along the way. And I know a lot of folks are going to learn a lot from this, and I have enjoyed this time getting to know you a bit more, Ashley, and appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.